Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Law-Splaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Recada of Recada Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. And no, I do not have the coof, but I do have a propensity for yelling at a guy named Legal Eagle. And maybe, just maybe, YouTube has punished me by giving me a little bit of a sore voice today. I'm less late today than I was early yesterday, so it just kind of balances out or whatever, and you'll just have to deal with it and stuff. I'm just kidding. I am truly sorry. I have these things. Maybe you've heard of them. They're called cats. And I made for dinner tonight. I made a chicken noodle soup because my kids love it. I love it. It's cold because Minnesota is the 8th circle of hell. And I was like, you know what? I want some soup. So I made soup, right? Everybody ate soup. And then I had the soup out. And I was coming down to do the show. I was up watching a TV show with Lady Rackets. Got done. I left my room, went through the kitchen to come down to do the show. And I'm like, that's a big ass pot of soup sitting on the counter. And if I leave that big pot of soup on the counter, I have cats that will make sure that pot of soup is on the floor. And so I had to get the soup into containers and put away in the fridge because cats are like China. They are asshole. They're asshole. No, you don't let cats have soup. They will You can't give cats people food. They will vomit all over everything. They're so evil. They're the worst animals, and I like them. But they are terrible. So I do apologize for being late. I shouldn't have been, but I am. So here's how the show's going to go tonight. We've got a couple things to look at. One, Amy Coney Barrett has received her first demand for recusal. So we'll look at the motion to recuse of Amy Coney Barrett in this case. And it's in Pennsylvania. You know the case. Oh my gosh. So it's a mess. It's a mess. We'll take a look at it in just a minute. But yeah, so this is the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, but it's filed in the United States Supreme Court because it has to do with Pennsylvania voting. Which, I don't know if you remember, but that was a 4-4 split, and now there's a 9th justice. So, that's the problem that they're facing, is that now there's a 9th justice, and they have a strong suspicion that the originalist Justice Amy Coney Barrett might rule alongside the originalist justices of Clarence Thomas, and, I guess sort of originalist justices like Gorsuch and Kavanaugh and whatchamacallit, Alito. So, yep, that's maybe a problem for some people in Pennsylvania. The Republican Party is looking at it like, hey, we might get a win. So, that's that. But we'll take a look at her first recusal request and talk about that a little bit. What we're going to do at midnight is we've got a caller. We've got a caller. He's been on the show before. He is Adam from Michigan. And Adam, let's see. Do I have an email describing? Here we go. Oh my goodness. Let's do it this way. Excuse me. There is a lawsuit that was just filed, and there's a hearing on it tomorrow. All right? There's a hearing on it tomorrow, and it's an emergency lawsuit in Michigan, and it has to do with protecting the vote. Adam, I believe, will tell us about his experiences as a poll worker, right? It's going to be not like a stripper one, but an election poll worker. He went to the training in Detroit, and they flat out said that they were going to attempt to use COVID social distancing rules to prevent people from seeing what was going on, to prevent the poll checkers from seeing what would happen at the polls. So, like, the plan, as articulated in the training session, from what I understand, was to utilize social distancing rules to prevent the election integrity from occurring. Does that make sense? I mean, that's just blatantly engineering how to steal an election using COVID restrictions, okay? So Adam is going to join. Oh, there he is. He's in chat. He's going to join at midnight, and I'm sure I don't have the full picture on it, but that's he's going to fill us in on that, and that'll probably take us through the end of the show. We may have a little bit of a shorter show tonight. It may go longer. I don't know, but my voice is a little bit ruined from yelling at Legal Eagle. But good things come of that too. One of them is that I got to yell at Legal Eagle, and two of them is that there may be, some people kind of liked it and sent me some emails. So that might develop into something nice. But that's what we're talking about today. I feel like I also had a news story. Not there. Give me just a second. See if I have. I might not have had one. I might have just thought that I had an interesting news story to cover today. Oh, no, this is funny. This is just a funny news story. It's legal. It's law related. We can take a quick peek at it. Because this is the law we need. This is what's going on in the world. This is the real stuff. We'll take a very quick look at this. My God, why are these freaking... Where's my window? Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm not even alive right now. What happened with Legal Eagle? Apparently you didn't watch yesterday. That guy sucks. That's the long and short of what happened with Legal Eagle, is that he sucks. He's a disingenuous piece of garbage, and he deserves all the bad things that happen to him. Whatever that. Well, I don't know what they are, but eventually, that's what needs to happen. Bad things. Guy's terrible. Okay. Morty J says, "Hey, Nick, I got laid off 2 weeks ago, but I got a great new job that I'll be starting this week. Sadly, I'll be missing your early week shows, but I'll still be on for the weekend. Thank you for all you do, Nick. God bless." Hey, Morty J, I'm glad you have bounced back from losing your position. That's always terrifying. Glad to hear you got a new gig that's hopefully will work out really well for you, buddy. So, don't be a stranger. Legal Eagle is the PragerU of YouTube. I thought PragerU was the PragerU of YouTube. But I like it anyway. Okay. Look at this headline. This headline is great. I love it. Man pleads not guilty to arrow slaying at National City homeless encampment. Yeah, you read that right. An arrow slaying. So, a man who allegedly used a bow and arrow to kill another man last week at a makeshift homeless encampment in National City pleaded not guilty Tuesday to a murder charge. Miguel Antonio Venegas, 35, is accused in the slaying of Josue Hector Cameron, who was shot in his chest with a metal-tipped arrow about 2:30 p.m. on October 9th. What? Why does this guy have a bow and arrow? This is a homeless man. This is a homeless man. Deputy District Attorney Jessica Stair said Cameron got into an argument with his girlfriend, who sometime later entered Venegas' tent at the encampment of west of Wilson Avenue and 18th Street. Listen. Drexel logic needs to apply here. Look at this. A guy's facing a murder charge over some chick coming into his tent because of some other guy. Kind of sounding like simp material here. Big simp energy, firing bows and arrows. Now look, chat, you know this. These broads be coming into tents. They be shooting arrows at people. As Cameron was looking around the camp for the woman, Venegas emerged from the tent and took the opportunity to fire on Cameron as the victim was trying to get away, she said. An exact motive for the slaying was unclear, but the prosecutor said Venegas believed the victim was treating his girlfriend poorly. At Venegas' arraignment, Deputy Public Defender Pedro Garcia said his client told police he was trying to protect the woman involved in the incident. Yes, this is the sniper simp. He's got it. She also told the police she was not Cameron's girlfriend, according to the attorney. So he's like, I was just protecting my girlfriend. And she's like, no, I'm not involved with this guy. American simper. But that's the loyalty he was looking for. The one where she disavows being his girlfriend right after he killed a man supposedly on her behalf. So Garcia said Venegas has no criminal history. Garcia, again, is the public defender. This is great. Garcia said Venegas has no criminal history, but the attorney highlighted Cameron's lengthy record, which he said included robbery convictions as well as arrests for assaults and making criminal threats, which is great if you're dead and you can't object to having your past included for your present actions. Police said officers responded to the area after someone reported a fight, then were flagged down by Venegas, who directed them to the transient camp, where they found Cameron unresponsive. He died at the scene. Venegas, who faces the murder count and an allegation of using a deadly and dangerous weapon, is being held in lieu of $800,000 bail. So that's the story. Look, I thought this is kind of funny. Hold on just a second. I wonder if we got a mugshot of this guy. We have a mugshot? Do we have? We don't have. I can't find a mugshot for him yet here. Don't you want to see what this guy looks like? They got nothing. They don't have him. I can't find his picture. Oh well, that's too bad. I hope he looks like a movie character of some sort. Yeah, did I say $80,000? $800,000 bail. I'm sorry. But so there you go. I just thought it was funny. Like who kills someone with a bow and arrow at a homeless camp? Like, you figure they just hit him with a stick or something. But this was not a big story to cover. Just some comedy for us. Okay, so the Big Red Bear says, Legal Eagle is the mundane mat of the law profession / YouTube lawyers. Also, the polls seem to put Trump into 4 to 5 points of Biden. This makes up for the 5-point advantage I typically give Trump. This will be interesting. Lol. We'll see. I mean, I think election night's going to be very interesting. Oh, the rest of the week. Uncivil Law will be on tomorrow. A big brain panel. Sans Peacock on Friday. I'm not quite sure on Thursday's show. What will happen. I'm trying to line up someone for it. I don't know if it's going to work out. We'll have to see. But yeah, that's the schedule for this week. Next week, we're going to have an election night stream. I don't know how long it'll go. I don't know when it's supposed to start. What, like 6? Like 5, 6 in the evening? And just keep going forever? We'll have like the Young Turks pulled up. We got to find people who are likely to cry. I don't know, like Nick Fuentes maybe, or something. Like, it depends on who loses. Who's going to cry about it? That's, we'll have to figure out who can come on. But there will be various guests that'll be coming on as well throughout the night, and it'll be fun. So, I don't know. Never done a show like that before, but it'll be just hours and hours of disaster. Hours and hours of disaster. So we're going to do that. Oh, I don't know if we'll have a decision election. It doesn't matter. If it's close, guys, you got to understand. These people think that Joe Biden is going to clearly and dominantly win 330 electoral votes. It can't even be close. If it's close, we'll have breakdowns. We will have massive breakdowns. So, Angry Baneling Peacock said he was going to make it Friday, but then he had to back out. He messaged me, I think yesterday or the day before, I don't remember, and said he couldn't make it Friday. Something came up for him. So sorry about that. He did acknowledge that he was an asshole, like a cat or like China or whatever. So that's, but yeah, election night is going to be just a long stream, a rolling disaster. It'll be funny. If Joe Biden isn't pronounced the victor by 6 p.m., I think people will be crying already. So it'll be great. But that's that. So do come watch. Tell your friends. Hide your wives. Hide your kids. Come watch the election night. All right. Let's take a look at this recusal document. Now, let me see if I can do something else here. Okay. All right. So, I swear I'm like out of it. I was watching TV with Lady Rackets, but I was laying in bed and I was like half asleep, barely even alive. Oh shoot. So I have this other thing to do at some point, and we might do, I don't know when to even do this. Tucker Carlson interviewed Tony Bobulinski. And I haven't gotten a chance to watch through it yet. But that is the former business associate of Hunter Biden. So I know a lot of people watch that. and some people had asked me to take a look at it and see if I had any thoughts about it. But I haven't watched it yet, so I don't know. Maybe I'll have thoughts. Okay. So here's the motion. In the Supreme Court of the United States, the Republican Party of Pennsylvania versus Kathy Boockvar in her official capacity as Secretary of State of Pennsylvania, et al. All right. So this is brought, motion to recuse. It's actually brought by the Secretary of State of Pennsylvania. We've got authorities at a factual background and argument. Due process clause of the Fifth Amendment requires Justice Barrett to recuse herself from consideration of the present case. I have a feeling we're going to find that it maybe doesn't. And then Justice Barrett is required by statute to recuse herself in this matter. We'll see on that as well. Okay, this is not very long. Let's take a look at what's going on. Respondent Luzerne County Board of Elections respectfully moves for the recusal of Justice Amy Coney Barrett from this matter pursuant to Supreme Court Rule 21. This recusal is compelled since Justice Barrett's, quote, impartiality might reasonably be questioned, 28 U.S.C. 455, given the circumstances of her nomination and confirmation. Likewise, the Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment, U.S. Constitution Amendment 5, requires recusal under these same circumstances. Now, I'm not aware of recusal being built into the Due Process Clause, but I am looking forward to it. Let's look up Rule 21 of the U.S. Supreme Court. Let's see. Motions to the court. Every motion to the court shall clearly state its purpose. Oh, okay. So that's just filing a motion to the court. So then it's 28 U.S.C. 455 is the statute that they're citing. Disqualification of a judge, justice, judge, or magistrate. So we'll pull this up so we can take a look at the law they're going to talk about here. And we'll see what it says here. So any justice, judge, or magistrate, judge of the United States, shall disqualify himself, sexist, in any proceeding in which his impartiality might reasonably be questioned. Okay, that's fine. He shall also disqualify himself in the following circumstances: where his personal bias or prejudice concerning a party or personal knowledge of disputed evidentiary facts concerning the proceeding, where in private practice he served as a lawyer in the matter or in controversy. So they're really just focused on A here. Their impartiality might reasonably be questioned. So they're going to have to just argue that she's impartial or not impartial, because they're not going based off of these factors, which aren't really going to be a big deal, I don't think. Let's see. Let's take a look at their argument. Pending is a petition for a writ of cert to the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, filed by the Republican Party of Pennsylvania, challenging that court's decision of September 17, 2020. Notably, this decision came one day before President Donald Trump nominated Justice Barrett to fill the seat of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who died only 8 days earlier. He waited 8 days too long, in my opinion. The facts relevant to consideration of the petition have been before this court since September 28, 2020, when RPP, yeah, you know me, and the President pro tempore of the Pennsylvania Senate submitted emergency applications to Justice Alito seeking a stay of the Pennsylvania court's mandate. All right. Justice Alito referred the applications to the court, which were denied on October 19, 2020, 3 weeks after they were filed. Justice Thomas, Justice Alito, Justice Gorsuch, and Justice Kavanaugh indicated they would grant each application. All right, so that's where we had the 4-4 split in Pennsylvania. All right, but the 4 Republicans indicated that they would grant it. The 4, Roberts and the 3 other liberals decided they would not. And since it was a split, it just kind of goes back down. On October 23, 2020 at 9:08 p.m., undersigned counsel was served a copy of the petition via email. This was less than 12 hours after the Senate Judiciary Committee voted to favorably report Justice Barrett's nomination to the full Senate. After voting to limit debate on the nomination, the Senate confirmed Justice Coney Barrett on October 26, 2020. That evening, Justice Thomas administered the constitutional oath to Justice Barrett in a special ceremony arranged and attended by President Trump at the south entrance to the White House. Upon taking the judicial oath today, Justice Barrett will now assume her place as the 103rd Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. Great. Fantastic. The nomination and confirmation of a Supreme Court justice this close to a presidential election is unprecedented. Footnote, except when it is precedented. President Eisenhower made a recess appointment of William J. Brennan to the court shortly before the presidential election of 1956. After re-election, Eisenhower, a Republican, then nominated Brennan, a Democrat, early in 1957. So in the previous precedent, he appointed someone in a recess appointment because the Senate wasn't in session to actually make the approval. So there you go. And as concerning as that is, it's here's the problem though. It's not actually concerning. It's not actually concerning. In theory, the last day of a presidency, the last hour of a presidency, if they could somehow hammer through a nomination and a vote, it would be valid and constitutional, so long as it follows the Senate's rules. Now, the rules wouldn't allow for a last hour push like that. We're talking like if a justice dies on the day the president's leaving office and he appoints someone and the Senate rushes in to confirm. The Senate rules won't allow it to move that fast. But if they did, it would be presumptively constitutional. So, but anyway, as concerning as that is, what is even more troubling is the language President Trump has used in consideration of this nomination, linking it directly to the electoral season at hand with implications for his own reelection as seen in this example. Yes, the president might want 9 justices on a court to determine the election if something were to be brought up for the election. And considering there are already pending election cases before the court, that's a concern. It's valid. It's funny that these pending election cases actually validate the president's concern and want for a 9th justice. And it's even funnier that we had a deadlocked 4-4 split on an election issue, which would merit entirely the concern to have a 9th justice to actually resolve the matter before the court prior to the election. That is actually supporting the idea of nominating and approving a Supreme Court justice. They just don't like who they nominated and approved. The problem is they can't do anything about it. It was entirely constitutional. It was fully within the powers of the president and the Senate to do it. Trump predicted that the Supreme Court will be called upon to determine the winner of the presidential election and that whomever he nominates on Saturday to replace the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg might cast a decisive vote in his favor. Quote, I think this will end up in the Supreme Court, and I think it's very important we have these 9 justices, Trump said. It's better if you go before the election because I think this scam that the Democrats are pulling, it's a scam. The scam will be before the United States Supreme Court, and I think having a 4-4 situation is not a good situation. Right. I mean, he's 100% right. 100% right. And that's quoting a Washington Post article. Against this backdrop and in the aftermath of Justice Barrett's nomination, a public poll reflected significant concern with her presiding over matters related to the presidential election. Oh, gee, why would there be a public poll? Is it because the entirety of the media is hell-bent on illegitimizing her nomination and approval process? Like, it might be that. It might only be that the people who report the information to the public have made this out to be something other than a constitutional process that was followed. I don't know. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's that. How many articles did you guys see from the mainstream media saying, despite everyone's concern, Amy Coney Barrett's nomination is actually fully within the power of the president and the Senate and 100% within the constitutionality of the process? Probably 0. I'm going to guess. I didn't go searching. I'm going to guess there were 0 of them. But that would have been a correct article. All right. The poll conducted by research firm SSRS on behalf of CNN asked whether Justice Barrett, quote, should or should not promise to recuse herself from any cases which could affect the outcome of this year's presidential election. Of the respondents, 56% said that Justice Barrett should recuse herself from such matters, while 34% said she should not, and 10% had no opinion. The problem is, of the 56% and the 34% and the 10%, probably none of them understand the recusal reasons for a justice. So this doesn't matter. Again, like, it doesn't matter, which they're going to have to say in just a second. While constitutional matters certainly cannot be governed by public polling, this example, it wasn't even public polling. It was a CNN commissioned poll. Who knows what the methodology was for picking stuff? Who knows how it was weighted? Who knows what the, weighted left versus right? What was the sample size? What was the political makeup? What was the education makeup? This example does offer a glimpse into a concern about the appearance, and they're using appearance here as a mimetic device to make the justices call to the statute, which Justice Barrett's presiding in the present matter entails. So do a variety of editorial and op-ed pieces published in the week since her nomination. So here's one by Mario Nicolais. Who's this guy? Oh, I didn't want to do that. Who's Mario Nicolais? An opinion contributor. Contributes opinions. Who is it? Oh my gosh. How annoying. Who is Mario Nicolais? Is this a lawyer? Is this a law professor? Let's see. Might be. This might be. Is this right? Might be an attorney. I can't really tell who it is. There we go. Wait, here's the poll. I don't want the poll. I want the... Oh, here we go. Mario Nicolais. Oh my gosh, the ads. Look at the fucking ads. They're everywhere. Is USA Today doing this bad? That they have this many ads running? So it doesn't... Oh, no, this is him. Yeah. So this is a veteran election law attorney and campaign operative. Okay, here we go. Oh, the legal advisor to the Lincoln Project. Okay. All right. Maybe he should recuse himself from life. That just explained the whole thing. That's all I needed. I just needed that credit. It's the legal advisor to the Lincoln Project. All right, here's a big bowl of eat garbage, you moron. Okay, so then we've got another one here. Judge Barrett must recuse herself in any elections from the Newark Star Ledger. Who wrote this one? Can't reach that site. Oh, wait, no, there we go. Oh, it's from the editorial board. They don't like my ad block. Next, we've got... Oh, it says here from the editorial board. Another one from the editorial board? Did they just quote? And then Booker is right. So they have two from the exact same people on following days, I guess. And then we have Renee Knake Jefferson. Who's this? Oh my gosh. Is the Doherty Chair in Legal Ethics and Professor of Law at the University of Houston, author of Shortlisted Women in the Shadows of the Supreme Court. Okay, so I don't know anything about this person. All right. Professor Jonathan Adler of Case Western Reserve University School of Law, who does not believe Justice Barrett's recusal is necessary, recognizes it may nonetheless be prudent, especially in light of the president's unfortunate comments. Now, I said earlier that Barrett may recuse herself. She may, on her own, decide to recuse herself to protect the perceived integrity of the court. I've said that, and she may, but none of that may is very, very strong, right? Like might, may, it's possible, theoretically. I don't know if she will. Oh, gosh. I am so thirsty. Okay, so his quote is, President Trump's own norm-breaking behavior may justify a departure from the traditional norms of recusal. His repeated comments about the role of courts in the election, and the Supreme Court and his nominee in particular, are high profile, that they might create the sort of appearance problem that the recusal rules are designed to address. Simple prudence may counsel recusal in a special case like this. After all, we've never had a justice confirmed in the midst of an election before. Okay, there's Jonathan Adler. And he's writing for the Volokh conspiracy there. All of this raises a terrible appearance problem which can only engulf the Supreme Court in a political stew with poisonous consequences for the independence and perceived integrity of the judiciary. Here's your problem, though. Who's going to review it? Who's going to review it? So on to their argument. The Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment requires Justice Barrett to recuse herself from consideration of the present case. In Caperton v. A.T. Massey Coal Company, the Supreme Court addressed the due process concerns implicated in a request for judicial recusal. Caperton involved the election of a justice to the Supreme Court of Appeals of West Virginia in 2004. 2 years earlier, a jury had returned a verdict against A.T. Massey Coal Company in the amount of $50 million. Massey's chairman contributed more than $3 million in support of a candidate who, if successful, would likely preside over the appeal of that verdict. Indeed, the candidate was successful, and after denying a motion to recuse, joined an opinion of the Supreme Court of Appeals, which overturned the verdict. Now, here's a different thing, though. That was a popularly elected judge. That was an elected judge, and they took $3 million of money and then ruled on the case. Can I read the Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment? Sure. Sure. It's not long. Here it is. Here's the entirety of the Fifth Amendment. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. None of that's relevant here. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. That's double jeopardy, not relevant here. Nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. That's freedom from self-incrimination, not relevant here. Nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. There it was. Did that make sense? So, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. That's the Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment. So we can see how it gets to here. But in this case, it makes sense, right? Because someone was awarded $50 million. They now have a property interest in that $50 million. And the person who is supposed to pay the $50 million paid $3 million to have a candidate get elected. And then when they got elected, they reversed the decision. So that reversal of the decision was a deprivation of a property interest of the party, possibly without due process of law. There was a conflict of interest going on, okay? All right. The Supreme Court granted cert to address the due process implications raised by the refusal to recuse in a matter where such significant expenditures were made in support of the now presiding justice. In reversing, the court examined several factors which have particular relevance to the present motion. At the outset, noting, quote, the difficulties of inquiring into a judge's actual bias, the court recognized the need for objective rules in applying due process analysis to the recusal question. Indeed, the court stated that it was not quote, determining whether there was actual bias, as it also acknowledged that the justice in question, quote, conducted a probing search into his actual motives and inclinations and found none to be improper. Look, I looked inside myself and I determined that I have no improper motives. It was a long process. It was very difficult, my self-examination, but I did it and I found there to be no issues. Okay? So that's great. Accordingly, it was not the justice's own beliefs nor even the presence of actual bias which mattered, but instead the objective risk of actual bias that required the justice's recusal. What was most important in Caperton, and which is precisely relevant here, was the court's conclusion that there is a serious risk of actual bias based on objective and reasonable perceptions when a person with a personal stake in a particular case had a significant and disproportionate influence in placing the judge on the case. Accordingly, applying these objective considerations to the question posed, the court found the justice's refusal to disqualify himself violated the due process clause of the 14th Amendment. So they're trying to make the case here that Trump has a valid interest, in particular in Pennsylvania's specific election policies. That's what they're going for. Moreover, the court observed that specific factors exacerbated the due process violation, namely the timing of these factors, and sealed the requirement for recusal. The temporal relationship between the campaign contributions, justice's election, the pendency of the case is also critical. It was reasonably foreseeable when the campaign contributions were made that the pending case would be before the newly elected justice. Although there is no allegation of a quid pro quo agreement, the fact remains that the Massey executive's extraordinary contributions were made at a time when he had a vested stake in the outcome. Just as no man is allowed to be a judge in his own cause, similar fears of bias can arise when, without the consent of the other parties, a man chooses the judge in his own cause. The present circumstances mirror those in Caperton to such a significant degree. I mean, not really, though, that there can be little doubt about the due process implications of Justice Barrett's participation in the consideration of this matter. They're actually entirely different. I mean, they're entirely different here. The other one was a personal, well, a corporate civil matter. This one is election law specifically. There, and more appropriately, like the propriety of state election law changes, in the constitutionality of those changes in a federal election. That has nothing to do with the other case. They're just saying, oh, judge got on the panel really close to when the ruling would happen, and therefore there's a vested interest. But see, Trump isn't a party in this case. The Massey Corporation was a party in the other case. I mean, those are significant. The temporal relationship between President Trump's nomination of Justice Barrett, the justice's confirmation in the pendency of the present case, which is relevant to the president's reelection campaign, is also critical. They quoted Caperton here, but they took the parties out and supplanted their own. Everything in brackets is just an editorialized thing to show how alike they are, but that's not the quote from the case. President Trump's statements quite clearly indicate that he wanted to choose the judge in his own electoral cause, which Justice Barrett's confirmation only 8 days before the election in the midst of the election case, which presumably others to follow, accomplishes the president's goal. It is of little importance what Justice Barrett's own searing examination of her subjective views are, or may be regarding any potential bias she may or may not harbor in considering this case. She has been placed in a position not of her own making, but one in which disqualification is constitutionally mandated. And I disagree that it's mandated, although she may want to do it. She may want to actually do it, but I disagree that it's mandated in any way. The law has long understood the universally recognized legal maxim, nemo judex in causa sua. No one may be his own judge. Caperton adds an important annex, improprium elegere vestri iudici. No one may choose his own judge. The present case is one of the utmost important to the president's reelection bid. Okay. Just as President Trump has placed Justice Barrett on the Supreme Court with whatever hope or expectation he may have, he has also imposed on her a duty to recuse herself in this case. Her integrity and the integrity of this court cannot tolerate any other choice. Dun dun dun. Justice Barrett is required by statute to recuse herself in this matter. Judicial code which governs the conduct of federal judges and justices is clear. Any justice, judge, or magistrate of the United States shall disqualify himself or herself in a proceeding in which his or her impartiality might reasonably be questioned. Not unlike the analysis involved in the due process question, this section of the Judicial Code, quote, focuses on the appearance of impartiality as opposed to the existence in fact of any bias or prejudice. A judge faced with a potential ground for disqualification ought to consider how his participation in a given case looks to the average person on the street. The use of the word might in the statute was intended to indicate that disqualification should follow if the reasonable man, were he to know all the circumstances, would harbor doubts about the judge's impartiality. Likewise, as Justice Scalia wrote in Leitke versus United States, recusal questions posed under 455 are to be evaluated on an objective basis, so that what matters is not the reality of bias or prejudice, but its appearance. Quite simply and quite universally, recusal was required whenever impartiality might reasonably be questioned. Emphasis in the original, so the objective basis. I wonder what the decision in Leitke versus United States was. Let's take a quick look. I'm kind of curious what that was. Bad Vibe says, you know me, I can't resist. Obama was an empty chair. Legal Eagle has an empty head. His only value is his cheap suits, and they would be worth more if his name wasn't associated with him. So there you go. Come on. It'd be really nice if that would catch up. Can we do... Thank you. Goodness gracious. And Adam, I see. I'll get you a link to the Hangout in just a minute. All right, here we go. All right, 1994. This one. See if we have a quick factual background on this. I don't know if we're gonna... Unfortunately, this one's gonna... Damn you, Scalia! He wrote... Let's see. Required judicial recusal for bias did not exist in England at the time of Blackstone. None of the grounds petitioners assert required disqualification. Let's see. Okay, well, I don't have time to go through the whole case. I was hoping there would be some quick statements about the factual basis of it, but there weren't. So too bad. Sorry. In the present case, terms like average person on the street, a reasonable man or woman, or impartiality might reasonably be questioned, are all implicated in the present motion. As noted above, public polling, editorials, news columns, and the persistent presidential expressions melding Justice Barrett's placement on the court with the electoral season can do nothing other than raise the quite reasonable question as to the impartiality of someone in Justice Barrett's shoes when considering cases as essential as the ones at issue here. No, actually, none of those are true. Because if you note above, it says that a reasonable person, the reasonable person standard was someone who knew all of the facts. It was a reasonable person who was also aware of all of the facts at issue. It is clear that the present motion comes at an inopportune time for Justice Barrett, this being her first day as an Associate Justice. This motion must be made now and acted upon favorably. Aside from the merits of the underlying petition seeking cert, there are raw procedural considerations instantly. Any action on these, which includes Justice Barrett's participation, could be catastrophic to the delicate foundation of integrity and public confidence upon which the judiciary sits. Once a judge whose impartiality towards a particular case may reasonably be questioned presides over that case, the damage to the integrity of the system is done. That's citing Durham versus Neapolitan. The problem is this happens every day. If someone can just question the impartiality, like they're already questioning the impartiality of the court based on this notion that Republican appointees vote one way and Democrat appointees vote another. It's already a question there. So it's not just that. It's not just an appearance of impropriety. Like, the appearance of impropriety has to be specific. And I don't think they make a good case here. Not a good enough case. That must not be allowed to happen in this case. The impact would be something from which the court would not soon recover. For the foregoing reasons, Justice Barrett should be recused from this matter. That's the motion that we have here. This is a Hail Mary from them. I'm curious to see what Justice Barrett will say about it. The problem is, if she doesn't recuse herself and the court has to vote on it, absent her vote, it'd likely end up a 4-4 split and just be moot. So that's kind of weird. How that would play out. I don't know. It's a messy one. But this is a unique problem for ACB. It really is. Other justices have not had to face this sort of issue because their nominations weren't so close to an election that was likely going to be challenged, and indeed already was being challenged by the or in the Supreme Court. They didn't have to deal with it. So now they do. Now they do. This isn't that big of a, it's not that big of a deal. It's just a new sort of thing. And so that is something they'll have to navigate. Luckily they are the Supreme Court, and I think they'll be able to figure it out. That's something that seems likely they'll be able to figure out. And guess what? No one's going to like whatever the decision is. No one's going to like it. All right, let me get Adam on here. 1 second. Reply. There we go. And I just got to do some window maintenance to get him in. We're also going to pull up a video, I think, that he did. And that video will kind of lay out some of this stuff for us. All right. Windows ready, just waiting on the guest to arrive. How dare he not have already gotten the email that I sent just a second ago. Javier Miedo says, couldn't this precedent, if it actually succeeds, lead to a nonsense racism, sexism, or sexual orientation case be used in all future cases stating self-interest? Yeah, it can lead to a lot, but it won't be the precedent that does it. Hey, what's up? What's up, Adam? You with me? Hey, what's going on? There we go. Your video's coming up. I'll pull you up on screen in just a second. Let me unmute you as well. I guess that would be the polite thing to do as the host.
I see you in 2 screens. Maybe I should mute you in the other one. That's
yes.
Much better.
Yeah, you should definitely mute the stream. Okay, let me pull you over.
All right, now I see the. Now I can actually see the chat.
There we go. There we go. All right, guys. Welcome to the show. To Adam. Welcome back to the show, I should say. Adam's been a guest a couple times.
Hey, man, 3-timers club.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
Cheers.
If you don't remember, Adam is involved in some level with the Lucas Gerhard case, which is still going, although it's kind of just sitting there right now because the judge is not favorable, we'll say, at the moment. That's the nice way to put it. That's a nice way I can say it. But
there has been some news in that case, though, since the last time we spoke.
Yeah.
Lucas has sued the prosecutor.
Oh, that's great. Oh, it's fantastic. I'm glad that has happened because what's going on over there is just it's an abject disaster, and the process has been just a mess. But
it really has been.
So he's sued the prosecutor. What's the basis for the suit?
So the charge that Lucas is facing was, I think, MCL 750.543M, which is the terror threat statute. Well, right. MCL 750.543.Z says a prosecutor shall not bring a charge for a case that is presumptively protected by the First Amendment.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so they filed the suit against the prosecutor because what happened was the judge basically denied all of his motions up to this point, saying, "We'll let the jury decide the law and the facts." Well, not the law, but I'm going to punt this to the jury. And suing the prosecutor in a civil action puts that back on the judge because that comes now in as a civil action. So they had a hearing on this, and apparently, and I'm not a lawyer, but as I understand it, what happened was his attorneys had to walk the judge through the fact that this is a separate action. This is a civil action, not a criminal, not part of the criminal case, because the prosecutor tried to roll them all back into one thing again. And they said, no, this is a separate action against you.
Right.
So
that's fantastic. So, good. Yeah. I hope they sue the prosecutor. I hope they're successful. I hope Lucas gets out of this mess because it's just ridiculous that this is that this has been going on.
And thank you so much, Nick, for promoting his GoFundMe because he needs it. I mean, he is not a national story, and he's not a celebrity, and he has been relying on this. He was denied his bond again to get off the tether, and still has, I think it's $20,000 held in escrow for his bond. That is money that is deprived from his defense. And fortunately, he's now on lawyer number 4 and 5 because there's 2 of them now.
Right.
Great counsel, who in fact are the very same attorneys in the case we're about to discuss.
Yes. And I'm trying to get one of them on. He and I have played some phone tag, but it's been a little bit of a mess. But okay, so let's do this. I've got your video. I'm just pulling it up on the show here, and this is it's Detroit Leaks, and so this is an 11-minute video. I hope you guys will hang out and watch it with us, because this will kind of set the premise for what we're talking about tonight. Is that right?
Yeah, and it might help for us to pause here and there to kind of elaborate on some things, because first of all, some of these things we now have new information about.
Okay.
But basically the genesis of this was I signed up to be a poll worker in Detroit. We'd heard there was a lot of problems with the Detroit election in August. In fact, one of the gentlemen who was a plaintiff in this was a witness to some of the stuff that happened. He said they were counting ballots before they even received their poll books, before the poll books were even opened. And by the way, there's going to be some technical stuff involved in how elections work that I will try my best to explain to everybody. Sure. I have heard some feedback from the video that some of these elements need further elaboration, so maybe we can explain some of those kind of things. But I signed up as a poll worker in Detroit. I actually did sign up twice. Originally, they said there was some place to sign up online. I just got a notice from my headset that auto shutdown initiated. I might have to find some kind of backup for a microphone.
Oh man,
which I have. We'll figure this out.
Okay.
But anyway, so I signed up twice. First in person because they had no way to sign up online at all. And then I signed up online. I ended up falling through the cracks because we found out tons of people were turned away from even signing up as poll workers. But I finally got the invitation to training. And being Detroit, they started 45 minutes late. So as I'm just sitting there playing on my phone, I'm like, I might want to take some notes and remember what they're saying. So I downloaded a voice recorder, which is legal in Michigan, not for a private conversation, but this was a public meeting between a public official and me actually serving as a public official because I'm receiving poll worker training.
Sure.
Recorded the entire exchange, and boy, some strange things were said. So with that, maybe let's cue the tape and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Do you have your power cable for your headphones? You can just plug it in while they're on, I think.
I will try that. Let's see if that works.
I can't wait.
I charged it for the hour before the show, thinking it might be low.
I can't wait. It's going to explode.
1 hour of charging might be enough, but let's see what happens. This will look ridiculous, but I'll do it anyway.
Oh, it's just a cord. I have a cord. It's hidden behind my mic usually, but... There we go.
All right.
All right, I can hear you. So it didn't die, and I'm not blind, so it must be good. Okay, so here is the Detroit leaks. So do you have this... We're going to have to, synchronize playing this, I think, because you'll be on a 20-second delay if you're trying to watch the stream.
Well, I'm watching you on Google Hangouts.
Right, but
I can't see. Oh, but I can't see it there. Right. I see.
Right. So
okay.
Why don't we? If you pull it up, we'll do this lame thing where we count down to go 3, 2, 1, go and play it, and then you can just tell me when to pause, and I'll pause with you.
Okay.
Right.
Hold on. Let me put the video on my laptop or my. It's not a laptop, but hold on.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Oh, shoot.
I don't know what sync tube is. I don't believe you. It's not a thing that works. What are you talking about? That no one has ever solved this problem. This is the only way to do it. Chat, how dare you?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. All right. So I'll do 3, 2, 1, and then we'll go on go. Not on 1, we go on go. Okay, ready?
All right.
3, 2, 1, go. Screen share makes the video a real mess, unfortunately.
Your chairperson can issue him what type of ballot? A provisional envelope. Why? Where is it going? Not in the tabulator. It's going in that envelope, right? We have how many days? 6. So what is the Department of Elections going to do with it? Destroy it.
Wait, what?
Okay, pause. That is the preview bit. That's I kind of model this after Project Veritas. They give you a juicy bit in the beginning and then they explain it later on in the video, right?
Sure.
So we'll come back to that near the end. But what they're talking about in that clip, and we'll get to this when we give this the full context, is they mislead voters who have already voted according to their records and say, well, what happens if they say you've already voted? Because what could happen in an election? And let me explain.
Okay.
What Michigan did for the first time this year that they've never done before is in the general election, if you applied for an absentee ballot in the August primary, they would automatically mail you a ballot for the general without needing an application again.
Sure.
So what happens is they mail out all of these general election ballots on the same day, the first day they get them, and they all land in the mailboxes on the same day. Now, if you have access to any inside information, you know what day these all land. And even in public records, you know who requested them. So potentially, if someone wants to take an election or wants to commit crimes, just take the ballots out of the mailboxes, steal them.
Okay, so
That can't happen. So what they're talking about is a scenario where someone shows up to vote, and they're listed in the file as having already voted absentee.
Gotcha.
And so what they say is, this guy can't vote. They don't give him any consideration for something might have happened to the ballot, no consideration for maybe there was some technical problem, and they're attempting to mislead the voter. So they say, give them a provisional ballot and let them think this will quiet them down. This will make them calm and happy. You'll see this all in the video in a few minutes here. But then what they say afterwards is, give them a ballot, give them a provisional ballot, let them think they're voting. But even if it's a provisional ballot, even if it gets rejected, should it be destroyed? Probably not.
Right.
Probably not. But that's what they say is, what are they going to do with that ballot? They're going to destroy it. So you'll see the full context of that in a few minutes here. But anyway, let's proceed on. You ready?
All right. 3, 2, 1, go. It's very dramatic music.
Oh, yeah. Some of your listeners will know where that sample came from.
It came from nowhere. You created it on your own, and you own the copyright to it. What are you talking about?
Challengers
Right.
and poll watchers. They have to wear a mask, and they have to stay 6 feet. That's important because they can come behind your table. But if you don't have 6 feet, they can't come back there. Any questions?
So for 6 feet back, once they have really good vision, they can actually see.
Exactly. Yes, they got really good vision, or they brought their binoculars. 6 feet. That's the rule, right? And you are entitled to your 6 feet.
Is that common? I mean, can we expect that?
Yep, there's a coming. They're coming. I don't know if they're coming to every precinct, but they're coming to many of them in the city. Yes, we have already gotten word. The state has already said they're coming. And the basic thing they're going to challenge is
Omar coming.
absentee ballot.
The state has said.
Right.
Yes.
What if they're like challenging and they start yelling and kind of making a scene?
911. They got standards. They got conduct standards.
Okay.
They make a scene, get them up out of there. Or the police are.
6 feet back, once they have really good vision.
Okay, so they're basically, let's pause it.
Let's pause it here. Yeah, pause it there.
All right, so what they're
Okay,
basically doing is they're saying, so they have to maintain the 6 foot of distance. So if you just set up your table at a place where there isn't 6 feet behind the table, then they can't come around to see what's going on behind the table, right? Like that's the implication
Right.
of what's happening.
Well, yeah, there's a couple of elements here that we should go through. First of all is that, yes, if you don't have your 6 feet and they say they can't come back there. By the way, this and most of whatever else we see in this video isn't unique to Detroit. These are from statewide directives.
Right.
And this particular aspect of it is the basis of the lawsuit. Because ordinarily, what poll challengers do is they literally stand right behind the people sitting at the table, looking over their shoulders. They look at the ID of the voter. They look at them signing the card. They look at the poll book, which is a small laptop. So you're looking at a tiny spreadsheet.
Sure.
So they say they can't even see this unless they brought their binoculars. Even if they actually can stand 6 feet back, most people can't look at a tiny computer screen or a driver's license from 6+ feet away, and more if the voter is also distancing, of course.
Right.
So a challenger can't perform the duty that they have the job to do. And then they go on to say that if the challenger makes a scene and complains, and I mean, they say maybe he's yelling, but their answer is call 911, have him thrown up out of there. And there's a lot of legal problems with that. Plus, also, by the way, you're not supposed to call 911 for non-emergencies, but
Yeah.
you know.
And yeah, removing a poll worker or a poll challenger or whatever, an election. Is that an election official? Like, is that an official position for a poll challenger?
So let me clarify what these different roles are. First of all, a lot of people use the term poll watcher, poll challenger interchangeably.
Sure.
but they're different. In Michigan, at least in Michigan, what they mean, and they probably mean the same thing in most other states. A poll watcher, in fact, it's not in this video, but they laugh at the poll challengers, at the poll watchers. A poll watcher can show up because it's a public meeting, and they literally just watch. That's all they do.
Sure.
And they joke about in the video. They watch the movie. Someone asks, and they stay there all day. Sure, they've got nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Poll challengers do this kind of the same thing, but they have standing to, first of all, inspect the voters' materials and to inspect the procedures, the processes, and they can challenge them. They can say this is not done properly. Now, a poll watcher could still be a witness, but to a lesser degree, and they don't have the privilege of challenging a procedure.
So
Whereas
what?
Poll challengers are not okay. So poll workers, the people that actually work at the polls, that's a paid position. You're working for the Department of Elections.
Yep.
A poll challenger is a volunteer. They can be a volunteer for a political party or also a accredited third party, and not a third party, an outside group, and there's a process for that they have to go through, but they can get accredited to authorize poll challengers. We'll
but
see
there
this
is some
documents about this too.
There is some like bona fides that they actually have, right? Like there's some credibility to being a poll. You present some credential. You say,
right.
I'm a poll challenger on behalf of X organization, for example.
Yeah, the Michigan Republican Party or the Election Integrity Project or what have you, right? They present credentials and they have standing to stand behind the poll workers and to make sure that everything that they're doing is proper.
Gotcha.
So that's the basis for this lawsuit. But there's going to be some other things in this video that is certainly quite interesting. But that's what we're going to look at if we look at the lawsuit. This is the thing that we're going to really drive at, because what they're setting up here is for there to be a hostile environment for poll challengers going in, where the poll workers have all been trained. They got to stay 6 feet back, and they're going to say, "We can't see anything."
Yep.
And then they're literally setting them up for there to be a police confrontation.
Right. Okay, so we about to resume?
Yes.
Okay, so 3, 2, 1, go.
Yes, they got really running for their binoculars. They make a scene, get them up out of there. Call the police on.
Wait, can we pause? Pause.
Yes.
That last frame was about the state police will basically do this if the sheriffs won't, is what it said, right?
Yep.
So the I'm guessing the importance of pointing that out is the fact that this is Governor Whitmer doing this. That this is the mechanism of the state of Michigan doing all this stuff. Is that what I'm supposed to pull from that?
There's a backstory to all of this. And the backstory is that one particular county sheriff in southwest Michigan, you recall there was, well, maybe your audience won't, but there was a big story a few weeks ago, last week maybe 2 weeks ago, of a supposed plot to kidnap the governor.
Right.
And one of the county sheriffs defended the alleged perpetrators.
Oh.
Yeah.
Why did he do that?
I don't know. I guess he's in what we call a safe seat.
Yeah, supposedly.
Yeah, and that's a whole story on its own. But anyway, so Dana Nessel, who's a very radical left-wing attorney general, basically is saying that we're going to have the state police monitor the elections if the local officials won't, and that was an attack on that county sheriff there.
Gotcha.
And also, interestingly, I think an effort to make the point that the state will be controlling the elections very closely, very, very tightly. So if there is some disputation about what people's rights are, the attorney general will control the scene.
Oh,
and
good.
She'll control what the police decide to do.
She's fair and impartial.
Oh, sure.
All right, let's get back to the video. 3, 2, 1, go. This is a ballot tabulator.
You're slightly ahead of me. I'm going to skip ahead just like 4 seconds.
Okay, so once it goes into the tabulator, it's done. It's a vote. It's counted.
Sort of, almost. Wait for this to play out for another couple of seconds, and then we'll pause and go through this.
Right.
How do you challenge a ballot? You take the ballot, you write under the barcode 2003, and you cover it with what kind of tape? Post-it. The post-it tape. But this time, you're going to put it in a secrecy sleeve, and Mr. Starks is going to go vote as normal. So his ballot is going through what? The tabulator.
Okay.
Okay, pause.
Okay, did you pause it?
Yeah, I paused it at the.
Okay. So I'll pause there too. Although the text in the tape in the video is about to explain what I'm going to say, but let me go through this all,
Sure.
maybe in some more detail.
Yeah.
So, here's what's so critical for people to understand about the tabulator. Once a ballot goes into the tabulator, that becomes the reported result on the night of the election.
Right.
And up until this year, if your ballot was challenged, it wouldn't go into the tabulator. It would go into a challenged ballots envelope. Because the thing is, when you put a ballot in, what they do is they tear off. So the ballot has a stub at the top with a serial number at the top. And when you apply to vote, you put the ballot number on a slip of paper, which is the application to vote, and that links the ballot number to the voter. The purpose of this all being that they're tracking all the ballots. But when the ballot goes into the machine, it's supposed to be anonymous, right? Because your ballot's secret, your ballot's private. So all the ballots in the tabulator are anonymous.
Right.
And therefore, they can never be uncounted. I worked at a recount once, and what they literally do is they just take out the ballot boxes and they recount all the ballots. They don't question anyone's identification or anything anymore. At that point, they're all anonymous ballots.
Right.
A ballot in the tabulator is anonymous. So what they did until this year was every challenged ballot would be separated, and those would be reviewed by the Board of Elections. They determine whether or not it was legitimate. And like an absentee ballot, if you've ever voted absentee, what they do is you vote on your ballot, and it goes into what's called a secrecy envelope with the stub, and then that goes into the actual return envelope. And what they do when you count your absentee ballot is they open that envelope, they tear off the stub, and they feed it through the secrecy envelope so they can't read your ballot. They can't see it.
Right.
The ballot that goes into the tabulator can't be uncounted. It is a valid ballot, period. That's the way it would normally always work. What they're doing this year, however, is if a ballot's challenged, you write the ballot number onto some blank spot on the ballot, and you cover it up with a piece of white Post-it tape. And then you feed it into the tabulator.
Okay.
So the result of that is, number one, challenged ballots now are counted on election day, whereas before they were not counted. Now they are presumptively counted. And they will be counted. The only way they are ever rejected after the fact is in the event of there being a recount. Only then is the ballot box opened up, and they look at the ballots, and they'll see that there is this ballot that has this Post-it tape over it, and then they can review the status of a challenged ballot. But the challenged ballots are all counted on election day. So even if you challenge a ballot, it still will be counted. It still will be reported.
Gotcha.
And by the way, let me give everybody some context here, because people need to understand this. Donald Trump won Michigan by 10,000 votes in 2016. Michigan has 5,000 precincts. So literally an average of 2 ballots per precinct made the difference in that election.
Right.
In Florida in 2000, it was 537 ballots in a bigger state. Less than 1 ballot per precinct determined the result of that election. So it seems like minutia, but this is big stuff.
Right. Well, how you steal an election isn't to get millions and millions of voters across the country to do something illegal. It's to do something illegal in the space where it matters.
Right.
You know, it doesn't, in a weird way, it doesn't matter if there's rampant voter fraud in California, or New York, because those are going a particular way. It would take a monumental amount of change in either of those states to make it happen. But if you can do it in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, and if you can do it on the scale of a couple hundred people to a couple thousand people rather than millions somewhere else, you can actually flip an election.
It matters in those states too for local elections.
Right, for local elections it does. But.
I mean, I saw once, this was maybe 10 years ago, a guy came into our local county Republican Party meeting. He said, I've won my race by less than anybody else in this room because I won by 3 votes. But guess what? I know I'm going to win on the recount. My opponent asked for a recount, but I know I'm going to win because everybody that's going to be recounting the vote is my friend.
Sure.
That guy is still an elected official 20 or 12 years later.
No big deal.
This stuff happens.
I've heard from the news that it doesn't, so I think you're being untruthful.
By the way, a buddy of mine who you've met, he came to Road Rage Minneapolis, did a story about this. Twitter suspended Big League Politics' account for reporting this story.
Fantastic. This one that we're talking about right now?
This very story, yes.
Yeah, Twitter's been on kind of a tear, suspending accounts over anything election related that isn't Joe Biden is going to win.
Yeah.
So that's good. All right, let's resume. 3, 2, 1, go.
Page 15. All right. Page 15 is an example of a new voter registration receipt. In Michigan, what can we do now as new voters? We can register to vote up and through Election Day. The computer system, the electronic poll book program is downloaded on Saturday before Election Day. It is not a live feed.
Why not?
If someone registers on Sunday or Monday, they're not going to be in your computer. But they should have a receipt when they register. If they do not vote at the time they register, they give them a receipt to bring to the precinct. So Mr. Starks, he came in. You looked and you didn't find him. So you're going to say, Mr. Stark, are you a registered voter in Michigan? Mr. Stark is going to say, sure. I'm Iron Man. I flew in yesterday and I'm registered to vote. Right?
Whew. Tough crowd on that joke.
They give you a receipt. Hopefully he will have one. He would have either right up under here. The first type of receipt he might have is going to say process him as a challenged voter. Everybody highlight that. Then below that, it says note to election inspector. Highlight that, because those are going to be the directives.
You can see an ink and paper right here. There's a bit about the post-it note right there.
The one down below says process him as a regular voter, a regular ballot. Highlight that.
They never explain why a voter would have one or the other.
Types of receipts.
Oh, I just thought it would. They would have it if they reported if they registered Sunday or Monday or something.
The second receipt will tell you to process him as a regular.
Not that they
voter.
explain it. To me that's what I thought.
You want to pause it?
Yeah. So vote processed as a regular voter on election day will be tabulated and cannot be uncounted later. Okay. Yeah. So.
Okay. So what they just told people was, someone shows up. I'm Tony Stark. I'm Iron Man. I live at 123 Bullshit Way. And they have a note from the clerk that says give them a regular ballot, or it says give them a challenged ballot. They never explain why it would say give them one or the other. This is for someone that registers at the last minute. They can register on election day. This was all done, by the way, in 2018 through a constitutional amendment that tens of millions of dollars of out-of-state money supported to make happen. So as of this election, we now have a new rule. you can never register to vote on election day. Show up at the polls, and you get a note from the clerk that says, yeah, he's a voter now. And they go on to instruct the people, here's what you do. Type in the address they give you. They don't have to, first of all, they don't have to show their face even because they're wearing a mask, right?
Right.
They have to show their face. I'm Tony Stark. Here's my piece of paper. Doesn't even have to actually, they don't even talk about address validation in this entire lecture. Like they could literally have a fake address even. And there's nothing that stops anybody from doing a simple mail merge, generating dozens, thousands of these phony notes. Now, I have talked to multiple local clerks. My own county clerk, or township clerk, excuse me, says, yeah, if someone shows up with one of those receipts, our instructions to the poll workers are, they are to call us, and we will confirm that this is a legitimate new voter.
Right.
Now, another township clerk, same thing, even said, we actually will emboss that receipt with our township seal on it. But in Detroit, they say nothing about any such thing. There are no security devices. There are no security procedures. In fact, you'll hear in a minute, they actually say, you can't call us on election day. We won't take your call.
Well, to be fair,
paper, give them a regular ballot. And once the regular ballot is issued and goes into the tabulator, it can never be pulled back again later because there's no way to sort through them. They're all the same. They're all anonymous.
To be fair, by the way, I would suggest that Detroit hasn't had phones in probably 20 years after it collapsed. So it's not their fault.
Well, actually, it's not in this clip, but they emphasized in both of the trainings I attended, they're overstaffed. They turned away poll workers.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's move on.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Man, that's just docs material right there.
Well, I thought about that, but you know what? Public record.
No, I know. I wasn't saying from you. I'm saying from the state.
Oh, by the way, can we pause for 1 second?
Yeah.
You know, the story the other day from the FBI, Iran and Russia have obtained voter files. Why would they do? FOIA them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got 10 million voter records. It cost me $20.
Yeah,
that's public record. It's public record. What do they do? Buy them from Aristotle? We got their social media preferences. They even sold us a list of how many religious magazines they subscribe to. Yeah, you can buy those. You can buy those.
Right. Well,
this is not. This is so ridiculous.
Yeah, voter registration in many states is public and not all that hard to get to, and that's actually one of the ways that Kiwi Farms uses to dox a lot of people. Is they'll just post their voter registration card.
Yeah, I mean, either the FBI are complete idiots or they assume that we are, and ditto for the mass media. Yeah, no kidding. The whole planet has our voter records. They're public records.
Yep.
Not hard to get. Anybody can get them. Anybody. So absolutely ridiculous. Anyway.
Okay, so I'm on the anyone with the know-how could generate. You have a typo here.
I know. I'll too painfully learn that I have an audio problem that only one channel of the recordings, it's only coming in on my left side. I didn't even notice that when I was doing the thing.
Oh, damn. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. Wait, what?
Yep.
Wait a minute. Is that from Macross Plus? Pause that. Was that little 3-note rip? Was that from Macross Plus? Where did you take that from?
Hollow Knight.
Ah! Okay. It sounded like Macross Plus. I'm sorry. Okay, we can go back to playing now. 3, 2, 1, go.
A lot of high school students as EPIs. And if you can't go to the receiving board, because it's late at night, right? If you can't go, you need to tell your chairperson early in the day.
Early.
Hey, I can't do the receiving board. They will choose someone else to go with them.
Okay, yeah, if I would have heard this part, I would have known it wasn't from Macross, but...
You actually can make up to $450 if you took this laptop to the receiving board. But I stress, this only can happen if your EPIs are a teenager. A lot of our EPIs are teenagers, in high school, and they can't stay at the receiving board till 2, 3 in the morning. So, they'll need someone to drop his laptop off. Because on election day, you'll have numbers for troubleshooters like myself and different coordinators. But honestly speaking, it's gonna be hard to get a hold of someone because it's gonna be 10 people calling for a mishap at the same time.
Here's the clip from the beginning.
Okay,
You
yeah.
notice about his name. Absentee ballot what? Sent and received. Do not what? Issue him a ballot. Mr. Allen, we have received your ballot. Thank you very much for voting. Would you like an I voted sticker? Right? He's already voted. There's no reason for him to vote again. At all. Ever. That day. He's done.
Ever.
But what
that day.
if he gets what? Loud, rude. That's not me. I didn't vote. I want to vote.
I can't imagine this actually happening
Acts of pure
for a good reason.
Right? What can you do? Your chairperson can issue him what type of ballot?
Provisional
A
envelope.
provisional envelope. Why? Where is it going? Not in the tabulator. It's going in that envelope, right? We have how many days? 6. So what is the Department of Elections going to do with it? Destroy it.
I don't know how you sat through this for 2 hours.
All right, pause here. 4 hours. There was 2 of these.
Right,
I went to one, and then went back the next day and did another one.
Yeah, I would stick my face in a garbage disposal if I had to listen to that lady for more than what we're doing now on the show.
Yeah. But notice the contrast here. A challenged ballot. Someone says, I don't think this person's actually eligible to vote.
Right.
That ballot goes in the tabulator and gets counted. Almost certainly can't be uncounted. But someone shows up, and who knows what might have happened. Might be they are trying to commit vote fraud. Might be they are trying to vote twice. Might also be something happened to their absentee ballot in transit. And they show up on election day expecting to vote. And they're told, you've already voted. No, it's not me. I want to vote. As she said,
Right.
Well, they're getting loud. They're getting rude. Tell you what, give them a provisional ballot. And don't worry about it. It'll calm them down, and then we'll destroy it. It'll be destroyed.
Yeah.
No question about, because maybe it's evidence. Maybe it turns out they shouldn't have voted. Maybe it turns out it should be rejected. But rejecting a ballot's not the same as destroying a ballot. So maybe she misspoke. I'm sure that'll be the full story.
Right. Probably.
But what they tell people, what they're telling their poll workers for 500 precincts in Detroit is trick the voter into thinking they're really voting. And don't worry, we'll destroy it later.
Yeah, that's interesting because the whole mantra of all this stuff is always like where they hold the voting rights of someone to be so sacrosanct and beyond reproach, which I think voting rights are important, but like they put them above anything else. Like, oh, your right to vote is more important than your right to breathe or whatever, which is obviously not true if you look at the history of voting rights in the United States. But I'm getting too far out here.
Well, what they're now going for, first of all, having to show ID, that's intimidation.
Right.
Allowing a challenger to inspect the ballots, that's intimidation, and also it's it's unsafe. So you can't do that anymore.
Right.
Actually putting challenged ballots into a challenged ballot envelope, that's not fair. Count all their ballots on election night. Let them cover up their faces too. So someone shows up to vote. I got a piece of paper. It says I'm Tony Stark. Go ahead. Da-da-da-da. You don't see their face. You don't have ID. They're not even in the poll book. They got a piece of paper that says they're allowed to vote. You can't call the clerk to confirm that that's even true. Give them a regular ballot, and once that ballot's in the tabulator, it can't be undone. This is something that can't be corrected later, because once a regular ballot is in the tabulator, it is counted. Period. There's no forensic investigation later. It's done. There's no after the fact cleanup on this.
Right.
Get the ballot in. They're done. They've done it.
Yeah, and I think people have a mysticism about election counting, that it is this like a safeguarded system with a bunch of sophistication, but it's really not at all. Because it'd be too big a job. Like thinking about the idea of someone sitting around, and if you want evidence of how big of a job it is, when they did the Florida recounts back in 2000, I mean, it was days. It was days of these people arguing over a couple precincts. Or wasn't it just one like main precinct that was really challenged where they did a manual recount, and it took forever for them to go through and count all the votes. First they have to find all the votes from that precinct, and then they have to bust open the seal and pull them out and actually sit and count them, and then have someone arguing about like what was marked and what wasn't. It's a messy sort of system.
Yeah, and there's issues with the seal too. In fact, I didn't include it in the video because I want to give some people ideas, but I actually did a recount 4 years ago. We had a precinct where the ballot box's seal was broken, and they just say, "This precinct is unrecountable." Period. Seal's
there
broken.
you go. Yeah,
we can't recount it. Whatever it was stands. In fact, one of the people in the trainings on this video said they're talking about getting paid, and make the point, if you don't botch it up, you get paid more. So you get a base pay. If your totals match properly, you get another $50. If you take the computer to the receiving board, you get paid an extra $75 or whatever it was. But she told the story of, if you're a ballot inspector, make sure that seal is real snug before you go home. Because we had a situation in the last election where someone showed up at the receiving board with a handful of ballots under their arm. And we said, you can't get paid. You just spend 15 hours doing nothing. And their angle was, make sure you do it right or else you won't get paid. But I asked the question, well, what happened to those ballots? Were they counted? She said, no, we can't count those.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, there's real problems with that too. There really are. But I will say though, more generally, because I've been following the ballot issue for a long time, and there's a lot of misinformation out there, and there's a lot, like I remember even 10, 12, 15 years ago, people were talking about the threat of internet voting. And there's legitimacy to there being concerns there. But when you get involved in elections, you realize how complicated it would be to hack into a voting machine, because there's 5,000 of these machines. There's so many personnel. There's so much going on. It's not an easy thing. And in Michigan, at least, we still have paper ballots. So if there is a recount, these things can be caught and can be corrected. There is some security in the complexity of it all. But as you see from this, there's so many ways that things can be manipulated on the fringes. And they're going after every last vote, because a few votes in one precinct times 5,000 can swing a whole election.
Right, absolutely.
They can. So.
Okay, so we've got about a minute and 10 seconds left of the video. You've got solutions. Should we go ahead and go through that real quick?
Yeah, we could skip it. Let me just tell you the solutions are. Number one is be a poll challenger.
Right.
Be a poll challenger. Sign up to do that. If you're not already working at a polling place on election day, be there to be a witness. Either sign up with your county party, or there's some third parties doing things. In Michigan, there's another group that's involved. I think it's called the Thomas More Society. They have a thing called the Election Integrity Project, and they're recruiting people aggressively. So you can sign up through them. You can get credentials as a poll challenger, but contact your county party and dog them to get your credentials to be a poll challenger, or at worst, be a poll watcher. At least you can be a witness to things. You can see what's going on. And maybe we should transition to talking about the lawsuit. The other two things are stay there all day, report whatever you find, spread the word. Detroit League.
Does Michigan allow recording at polling places?
Not video.
Not video.
Because that's voter intimidation to be walking around, waving your phone around. But they are public meetings. There's not, to my knowledge, any prohibition on audio recording, especially not if done discreetly, because the premise of why you can't record a video is because you're intimidating voters. Well, you can't be intimidating them if they don't know anything.
Right.
So
yeah, that's kind of
audio. I think is fine. Don't trust me. I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
But I think you can at least record the audio, and certainly bring a notepad. Take notes. Anyone that's suspicious, who they say they were, what time was it? Take notes. That might matter.
Right. It's so the solution is to go and do the old-fashioned thing, to be there on election day, to monitor what's going on, to report it, to talk about it if you see something that's improper. And that's really the only way we can ensure the fairest possible election. I have a
presence alone is a big deterrent. Yep.
Before we hop into the lawsuit about this, and you said there's a hearing tomorrow at like 11, right?
11 p.m. our time, which is Eastern.
11 a.m.
Oh, sorry, 11 a.m. Yes.
Okay, I was gonna say 11 p.m.
No.
Yeah, 11 a.m. Eastern. Oh shit, you're on Eastern time. I forgot you're in Michigan.
Yeah, nobody outside of Michigan knows that we're on Eastern time, almost entirely, except for like the very western tip of the UP. We're all on Eastern time. But if you don't live in Michigan, everyone thinks we must be Central, but no, we're Eastern.
Yeah, you should be on Central. I'm sorry, it's way later for you than I thought. So I just have a general question before we get into that lawsuit. So that'll be 10 a.m. my time. I don't know if I'll be able to. Is the hearing on that going to be public? Like, is it a Zoom hearing or something?
It is going to be on the Michigan Court of Claims' YouTube channel, which I believe, just go to YouTube and search for Michigan Court of Claims and it should come right up.
I will see if I can drag my lazy self out of bed and get on that. I do have someone coming to my house to do some work on something tomorrow, so I don't 100% know. But I'll see if I can get on and we can stream it and watch it. That would be interesting. But okay, so a general question before we talk about the lawsuit for just a little bit was, how do you feel about the idea of like a distributed blockchain voting system, sort of like Bitcoin, where everything can be tracked, but you would need encryption keys basically to be able to unlock your, who you are in voting? What do you think about that idea?
Well, I don't claim to be any expert on that. It sounds terrible.
You think so? Not that you'd vote from your house or anything. I mean, in theory, they could set it up that way. But you go to the polling place, you put in your voter key or whatever it is. Maybe they just issue a thumb drive to every voter. They go up, plug their thumb drive in. It matches an encryption key. Then they put in their vote and they pull it out. And then it's blockchained. It's stored. It's got cloud storage of it. So there isn't a way. There's not like one file you can delete and ruin everything.
Let me remind you that these elections are administered by government officials, most of whom are well over 50. This would be a disaster. Yeah,
that's true. That's the reason. We just need everybody to die first, I guess, before we can do it. I'm trying to figure out how we get a better voting system. No. That's actually protectable.
I actually think it's a good thing in politics, not just with elections, but politics in general, that so much of it really has to happen in the real world. Honestly.
Yeah.
Most of the outcome of the election is not determined by what happens on Facebook and Twitter and the internet in general. It's what happens in the real world and what happens in communities. Most people, if they... maybe not in the presidential election, but in all these state and local elections where no one knows who any of these people are, the number one reason why anybody votes for anybody is a friend of mine told me to.
Right.
They recommend it. Politics is intensely geographical. And to this day, the thing that makes the most difference is knocking on doors and recruiting local candidates for the local seats and building local groups that have a real world connection that Facebook and YouTube and Twitter can't break.
What do you who do you think's going to win on election day? What's your prediction? In the presidential election, what do you think? Based on your assertion that basically the manual get out the vote effort is what's doing the most work. Who do you think pulls it in?
I'm cautiously optimistic. I think Trump will win.
You think so?
I think every factor suggests it except the polls, which were completely wrong in 2016 and have every reason to be wrong now. I want to talk more about polls, actually, but would you excuse me briefly? I've been drinking coffee. And
oh, my God. How dare you? You cannot have biological need. Yeah, get out of here.
Why don't you go ahead and pull up the lawsuit, and then we'll talk about that. Pull up the motion, by the way. The complaint is not all that interesting, but the motion is where the fun stuff is.
Okay.
All right?
Yep.
I'll be right back.
Hold on 1 second, guys. Declaration, opposition, summons, complaint, motion. And let me get this thing. Let me pull up this thing. Excuse me while I whip this out. Okay, let me. What do I want to do with this? I need this guy to the motion. Is that it? Oh, that's the wrong. That's the. This one. Thank you. Oh my God. You'd think at some point I'd be better at managing this stuff, but it's never going to happen. I'll read a couple chats while he's gone as well. Because there were some that came in. Albert Wesker says, "Hi, Nick. I was wondering if you had any contacts in Ohio regarding an employment lawyer. You're not the first Ohio person who has asked for a contact there. I really don't. I have a situation at work I would like to run by an employment attorney and was wondering if you knew anyone trustworthy. Unfortunately, I don't know anyone who's in employment law in Ohio off the top of my head. I can reach out to my network and see, but things are not promising on that front. If any of you guys know an employment lawyer in Ohio, give me their contact information. I'll pass it on." E1337Neo says, "Hey, Nick and Adam.
I'm going to warm my coffee while you're doing super chats. I'll be right back again."
Well, this one's for you.
Oh, okay.
It says, "Hey, Nick and Adam, I swear that ominous-sounding done note sounds like the opening song of the Lunarians from Final Fantasy IV soundtrack. Adam, you should have used that instead."
That is what it is.
That is what it is. There you go. Okay.
All right, be right back.
Nova Zero, DEF CON 2016 actually had an 8-year-old teaching people how to compromise voting machines and the general issues of even their storage. There are no cyber experts who will tell you that voting online is safe. Manual is best. Manual is best. Yes, the chat window is frozen. I apologize for that. That was my boomerism. That boomered it up for a minute there. Oh, there's Doggo. Voting Doggo in the background. I like other people's dogs because they're not mine. Oh my goodness. All right. So I've got the motion pulled up on screen here, but again, I can't easily pipe it into you. So
I'm 20 seconds behind, but I see it on the screen here.
Okay, so which focus where do we want to focus? Let's start here. On an emergency basis and for the reasons described in the brief that follows, plaintiffs move the court for an issuance of a temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction to ensure the rights of both candidates and election challengers who perform a vital role in ensuring open, fair, and transparent elections. Relief must be granted sufficiently in advance of the general election on November 3rd to allow the issuance of corrected directives to local election officials from the defendants. Okay, so what are they're asking for a motion enjoining the behavior that's discussed in the video. What are they asking for the court to do? What do they want the court to do?
So the original complaint's a very short document. All it just says is here's who the parties are. One's a candidate, one's a poll challenger. And it cites this directive, which is the basis for what we saw in the video about the poll challenger's social distancing requirement. In fact, if you scroll down to, it'll be at page 19 in the PDF, I believe, page 8 of Exhibit A, you actually get a real nice Kevin Landauism there. It's the rule on social distancing for poll challengers.
Okay, so that's on page 19 of the PDF is the curbside voting thing.
Should be, okay, yeah, there it is. Challengers / poll watchers. It's coming in too blurry on my screen.
Oh, but nice. The apostrophes. While challengers and poll watchers have their rights and responsibilities established under law, election workers can strictly enforce requirements that they observe proper social distancing. Challengers and poll watchers are subject to the requirements in MDDHS order to use face coverings in enclosed spaces unless exempt due to health reasons. Okay, but yeah, so what are they asking to do?
What they're asking to do is to say that that's bullshit. And
right.
You can't do that because it makes it impossible for a poll challenger to do his or her job.
Gotcha.
Because if they're 6 feet away, they can't see what they're supposed to be looking at. And as we saw in the video, they're also saying if the table is less than 6 feet back from the wall, they can't even be behind the table.
Right.
Makes it impossible to even look at the laptop screen. So I've even heard of people who have signed up to be poll challengers buying binoculars, literally buying binoculars to be able to look at these poll books. And hey, sorry, even if you have the binoculars, even if you are farsighted enough to be able to see it from 7 feet away, it's still no good because guess what? Their bodies are obstructing them.
Right.
7 feet back, you can't look over their shoulder at that distance.
Okay.
So it makes it completely impossible to be a poll challenger. So anyway, you'll see the rest in the brief. They'll go through all this.
All right. Well, the request for relief. Let's do that real quick so that people know what they're asking for here. Enter a temporary restraining order requiring the defendants to both, 1, withdraw their violative 2020 general election directives and any similar written and oral directive with respect to the portions permitting local election official to prevent fulfillment of the duties and responsibilities of election challengers by and through the imposition of physical distancing requirements, rendering such activities very difficult to impossible, and 2, withdraw any further similar direction to local election officials. So like what you just said, make it so that they don't have to so they can't use social distancing requirements to prevent poll challengers to be able to do their job. And then B, order the defendants to show cause why a preliminary order and or permanent injunction should not issue containing the terms outlined in the preceding paragraph, in addition to a command that the defendants issue a timely revised directives to local election officials in compliance with MCL 168733 and MCL 168734, and then anything else that's necessary. So this is good. So B is basically a show cause motion where they have to the opposition has to say why this can't happen. They have to give good reason, good cause for not enacting Part A. So we'll see. So if the court, so the hope there is that if the court doesn't issue paragraph A, that they'll order the other party to show cause as to why A shouldn't be issued, which would then allow them to challenge it again.
Yeah, but that'd be no good because we have no time.
Right. It would be, you could, I guess, file another emergency motion or an emergency appeal to the Supreme Court of Michigan, but
which we may have to do, by the way, because the Court of Claims judge that this case was assigned to is the same Court of Claims judge who had decided that we should have an additional 14 days to receive absentee ballots after the election day, and was defeated 3-0 in the Court of Appeals on the appeal for that. Incidentally, the same Court of Claims judge also, according to Ballotpedia, donated money to the Democrat Party after being appointed to the bench.
No, that wouldn't happen.
No, shouldn't happen. But I hope she does the right thing anyway.
Okay,
but,
so the brief in support. Case calls on the court to protect the rights of a specialized team of professionals known as election challengers. so they can perform their vital role in ensuring fair, lawful, and transparent elections. Role of challengers is created by statute. Political parties and other organized groups with an interest in the purity of elections and guarding against abuses are authorized to appoint election challengers to closely monitor both the voting process and the counting of ballots. Once duly appointed and qualified, these credentialed persons are given a wide range of authority by the Michigan election law to closely monitor the election process. The rights include challengers shall be provided a space within a polling place where they can observe the election procedure and each person applying to vote. And so the directions that were issued at the training that you mentioned earlier obviously violate that. If they do, go ahead and place their table in a place where there's not 6 feet of social distancing space behind them. But also, that 6 feet of space runs counter to the law, as it's not adequate for observing the things. That's at least what the argument is going to be tomorrow, I'm guessing.
Right.
So then the opportunity to inspect poll books as ballots are issued to electors and witness the electors' names being entered in the poll book. So again, they have a legal authority to witness the electors' names being entered into the poll book, which, as you mentioned, was on like a small laptop screen. So they need to be close enough to be able to see that. So they must be allowed to observe the manner in which the duties of the election inspectors are being performed, challenge the voting rights of a person who the challenger has good reason to believe is not a registered elector, challenge an election procedure that is not being properly performed. These are the ballot challenges that we were talking about earlier. Bring to an election inspector's attention any of the following: improper handling of a ballot by an elector or election inspector, violation of a regulation made by the Board of Election Inspectors with regard to the time in which an elector may remain in the polling place, or campaigning and fundraising being performed by an election inspector or other person covered by MCL 168-744. So this is important. The poll challengers are not actually allowed to campaign or advocate in any way in the polling place, right? Like that's
right. In fact, a friend of mine who was a poll challenger had a card. I remember him he taped it to his cubicle wall that said, "I'm a poll challenger and can say nothing."
right.
And if a voter asks him a question, you just hold up the card, because they're only allowed to talk to the chairperson in the precinct.
Yeah, they can't do.
All they're gonna say is, "Hey, you can't do that."
Right. They can't do anything with having someone there. They can't do anything that would indicate any favor towards any candidate in any way, or even disfavor towards the process. So any other violation of election law or other prescribed election procedure. An election challenger may remain present during the canvass of votes and until the statement of returns is duly signed and made. So the challenger gets to stay there all the way through the end of the process. An election challenge.
And just to elucidate what that procedure is, when the polls close, there's a process where they go through shutting things down, and what they do at the tabulator is first they have an actual tray called the auxiliary tray, where if for some reason the machine breaks down, ballots go in there, and then at the end of the night they'll get fed in. And then anyway, at the end of the night, to close the machine, they print out a receipt tape that goes bzzz, and it's like 6 feet long, and it prints out 6 copies of it. And 2 of them they tape to the wall for people to read and to see what the results in the precinct are. And then the others all get signed by every poll worker, and then they go into the envelope and they go to the election board.
Right.
So, yeah, that's what that is.
An election challenger may examine without handling each ballot as it is being counted. So you can't touch them. They can keep records of votes cast and other election procedures as a challenger desires. That's what you mentioned with the notepad. That's interesting. It does keep records of votes cast and other election procedures as the challenger desires. It would be great to see that run up against no videotaping. Right? Because there they are.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from taking notes.
Right, but it says as the challenger desires. So you can keep records by taking pictures. Like in theory, I would be interested to see an election challenger challenge their inability to take pictures or video at the polling place by saying, no, I'm keeping records of the process as in this law.
Well, maybe. We're not suing on that, though. And they're telling everybody you cannot take pictures.
Right, this is just This is just my hypothetical mind, like in a wonderful world of no other
You
issues.
could draw a picture of them on your notepad and
You
make
got the
notes
court
of their-
sketch guy, like just.
Yeah. Make notes of their race and gender and ethnicity and height and all that. Yeah. But probably shouldn't do that. But
you know what'd be
But
interesting?
one thing that came up though, one of the things that they were telling us in the training, they gave us this example, and they said there was these two guys in the voter file, Derek Allen with 2 R's in Derek, and Derek Allen Jr. with 1 R in his name.
Okay.
And they had the same date of birth. And they belabored this example and said, now, Derek Allen, the one guy, already turned in his absentee ballot. But now this guy shows up. He's Derek Allen with 2 R's. He's Derek Allen Jr. with the same date of birth as the other Derek Allen.
Oh, my God.
Same last name, same precinct, same date of birth, 1 letter off on the first name. They say, this guy is not the same as this guy. You can't presume that he is. Now, in actual practice, when you see these in the voter file, and like I work on campaigns, that's obviously a duplication.
Right.
Same first name phonetically, same last name, same date of birth, same precincts, different address. But, a guy moves, re-registers, there's a typo. One of them says junior, one of them they didn't bother putting it in because often they leave off the suffixes and prefixes. That's clearly the same guy, but they actually tell us, no, make sure you give that guy a ballot. So, yeah, that happened. But anyway, sorry, that was a sidetrack. But anyway,
no, it's the amount. Again, this is something that I talk about. Well, I've been talking about a lot lately because it's an election year. This idea that there is no voter fraud is one of the most insane talking points of the mainstream media. It's like, well, there's no voter fraud. It's like, how could there not be? How could there not be? You have people who lie about.
There's no Hunter Biden laptop either.
Yeah, right.
But,
I mean, that's a thing where you could say, okay.
A long time ago, I heard a guy explain this to me really well. He said, what if you had 36 people in isolation pick their NBA draft picks, their fantasy, the fantasy football picks or whatever, and they all picked the exact same thing. You could only conclude they were all coordinating and colluding. That's what the mass media does every single day with what they choose to report and what they choose not to report.
Oh, right, yeah.
Every single day. There's no question about it.
Yeah, but there's also no question that in a system with 140 million votes being cast, that there's voter fraud. Like that blows my mind that they would think so. You can get into any system of like 100 people doing something, and at least one person will do it wrong, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And so you extrapolate that to 140 million, and there's a million people who statistically will have to do it wrong. Like it's
well, unintentional is not fraud. And I will say this. From the political professionals that train me, they say ordinarily don't go crazy about vote fraud because it does exist. Yes, it does happen. It's somewhere between where Democrats and Republicans think it happens. It happens, but not as much as we think it does. And actually, it's amazing how little it does occur. The problem is in this election where people are so crazy and they view Trump as the second coming of Hitler, they will do anything and they will try everything. And if they're willing to burn down innocent businesses, kill people, don't expect them not to be above cheating because their entire psychological health depends on this. So in this election, I think it's perhaps a little bit of an elevated risk and one where it doesn't take a whole lot to make a huge difference, especially not in our state.
I counter that narrative with as much evidence as they provide for there being less than they think. I say there's more than they think, and I have just as much evidence to back it up.
Yeah, well, the story my political mentor used to tell was there was a guy, B1 Bob Dornan, they called him. He ran for president, I think it was 1996, and came in like 1% of the vote or something, and ended up losing his congressional seat by about 1% of the vote. And he made the point, there was probably some blue-collar vote fraud going on in some of the union precincts and all of that. But if he wasn't being a banana head and trying to run for president, he might have been working his district and wouldn't have won, wouldn't have lost by 1% of the vote.
Right.
So,
here's a question for you. So the way this is purely an election night news coverage question, right? So if you notice, in a lot of states on election night, they'll call entire states with like 1 to 10% of precincts reporting, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that they're going to have some mishaps this year with early and mail-in voting being so high and so skewed heavily Democrat, at least on the mail-in side, where they're going to miscall a state because in some states, right, like Democrats are up 65-35 or something like that on the mail-in voting?
I think if anything, they'll be way more hesitant.
You think so?
I think they'll be way more hesitant to call a state because they'll say, well, we have no idea how the mail-in versus in-person voting breaks down, and there could be a much bigger swing. And actually, if you look at the states where they did call them super early on one precinct or two precincts, it's because they already could tell that was such an extreme case that there's no question. I don't remember them ever taking back a state saying we called it wrong, other than where it was close and they jumped the gun. But
yeah, that's what I mean.
Especially because there's so much of an X factor. I think it's going to err on the opposite. I think, first of all, social media will suppress any stories of what the results are on election night. Oh, it's election disinformation. They want to make you think that Trump won,
right?
Et cetera, et cetera. And I think most of the media will be very hesitant to call a race when they still think there is a statistically significant difference out there between the mail-ins versus the in-person voting. Although there's a lot of disinformation on that too. I saw there's a story about Michigan having, I think they said it was like 2 or 3% percentage points more Republican early voters than Democrat early voters. And I clicked on the source and it went to an NBC News tracking the Michigan election. And it said bipartisan voter registration, 2 percentage points more Republicans has voted early than Democrats. That's total bullshit. Michigan doesn't have partisan voter registration.
Oh,
period.
Sure.
That was a totally fabricated story. We don't have partisan voter registration, so you don't know what the ballots are because we haven't opened any of them. We haven't counted any of them yet. And you can't say this many ballots were returned. Now, maybe they have a list from a data broker stating probabilistically which ones are most likely Democrats and which ones are most likely Republicans, but they did not report it that way. They said this many registered Republicans turned in their ballots, this many registered Democrats turned in their ballots. We don't have registered Democrats. We don't have registered Republicans. So that story was completely full of shit. That's from NBC News. It's a complete lie, a total fabrication.
Do you think the Upper Peninsula will secede from the rest of Michigan?
I hope not. We need their votes.
There you go.
But probably not. Probably not, honestly. No, I mean, we talk about it, but seriously, come on.
Okay, so observe the recording of absent voter ballots on voting machines. That's the last duty there that a challenger has. So because challengers play such a vital role in our democracy, legislature has made it a felony to threaten, intimidate, or impede the work of an election challenger. In fact, there are only 2 reasons given to support the expulsion of a challenger from public polling place. If there's evidence that the challenger is drinking alcoholic beverages, I guess I can't join, or is engaging in disorderly conduct. So Defendant Benson is the chief election officer of the state and has supervisory control over local election officials in the performance of their duties under the Michigan election law. In that role, it is her mandatory duty to advise and direct local election officials as to the proper methods of conducting elections so that the entirety of the provisions contained in the Michigan election law are followed. Defendant Brader is Benson's subordinate and has been, poor Brader's a sub, and has been appointed director of the Michigan Bureau of Elections. In that role, Brader has been tasked by Benson under her supervision to, in fact, supervise and administer the election law. On October 16th, defendants issued a written directive to local officials outlining procedures. A copy of that document is attached as Exhibit A. They have directed, or at the very least permitted, local election officials to condition the presence of election challengers upon wearing a face mask. And then, even while wearing a mask, a local official may mandate and expressly command that challengers remain socially distanced from election workers. The directive adopts the definition of social distancing promulgated by Robert Gordon, director of the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Social distancing therefore means that an election challenger must maintain at least 6 feet of distance from another person, including a poll worker. Okay, well,
by the way,
yeah.
Did you notice? Not just here, but all across this country, somehow it went from social distance or wear a mask to you must do both.
Yes.
Even if you're wearing a mask, you still must social distance.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of things. I've noticed that our 3-week flattening of the curve is what we're 7-8 months in now of flattening the curve. And then I've also noticed the idea that they would push back and stabilize the infection rate to avoid spiking. And now that we have stabilized infection rates, they're like, oh, these infection rates just keep happening. It's like, you did this. You wanted this exact thing. This is every policy you did that I said, hey, don't do that. That's awful. They did all of them for this result, and now they're bitching about it. That's driving me nuts, actually. That alone is pissing me off.
A couple of quick points here on that paragraph, because you're gonna see some of this in the opposition's memo in response to this.
Right.
They don't actually say we're challenging this about the mask requirement. But in the opposition brief from the Attorney General, they try to put that back on us. They're challenging the mask requirement. No, we're not. Now, maybe we could have additionally as a separate matter, because in that Exhibit A that we looked at earlier, they make the point you can have a medical exemption to the mask requirement.
Right.
That's not mentioned. It wasn't mentioned in Detroit. Wasn't mentioned in there's a rights and responsibilities of poll workers document that was put out by the Secretary of State that makes no mention of a medical exemption, which is required, by the way, under Michigan civil rights law. But
why isn't there an asthmatics for election purity group? Like everybody goes, I want to look at your election stuff. I can't wear a mask.
Don't come at me, bro. Don't come at me, bro. Oh.
I can't do that. I did too much yelling last night. It hurts. Well, I get the basic thrust of this. We saw the stuff in the video, the quotations down here. So I don't really think we need to read through the rest of it. You get. Wait,
read through this at least, because here's the bit where we cite the video.
Okay. So
bottom of page 5. Bottom of page 5.
Bottom of page 5. Okay. So we've got plaintiff Cushman is a duly appointed election challenger who intends to serve in that role during November 3rd general election. Additionally, plaintiff Cushman served in that role during.
No. Sorry. Top of page 6.
Oh, I was on. Okay, here we go.
Yeah,
it's not.
You're past this, but the next thing.
It's not.
Actually, do quote the video.
It's not just election challengers who recognize that they can't perform their duties based on the defendant's directives. A local election official in the city of Detroit, who's training poll workers, rather gleefully describes how election challengers are to be impeded. They have to wear a mask and they have to stay 6 feet. That's important because they can come behind your table. But if you don't have 6 feet, they can't come back there. They cannot wear anything that signifies who they work for. Just has to be on the card. So they can't walk in with a party or anything on, just like you can on your mask, and they can't either. Any questions? So if they're 6 feet back, they can't actually see. Exactly. Unless they got really good vision or they brought their binoculars. 6 feet, that's the rule. 6 feet, that's the rule, right? And you are entitled to your 6 feet. So there was that. So yeah, I like that you do have the YouTube video. Wait, so it says this video is designated as unlisted. Oh, is this the full 2 hour?
The full 2 hours.
The full 2 hours. So that's there. Very cool. There's no way the court will watch a 2 hour video in advance of that hearing tomorrow,
no.
but that's okay. They don't need to now. But yeah.
And then there's the argument for the injunction and all the rest, right?
Right.
But you might want to check out the opposition brief to it, because they make some very interesting pronouncements in that one.
Yeah, I will, but I don't know if I want to do it on the show tonight because we're already getting late.
Yeah.
But I'll check it out, and like I said, I think
more tomorrow. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and get up and get on that one. Can you
just to give you the minute summary of it.
Yeah.
First of all, they challenged the standing of the plaintiffs. They say Stephen Kara, he's a candidate for state rep, doesn't have any elevated basis besides a regular citizen, just because he's only a candidate, so who cares? And then Cushman they challenged, saying he says he was a poll challenger and he imminently will be a poll challenger, but he's not now, so he has no special standing. This is all speculation. Well, the attorney's already submitted now. He actually now does have credentials, so they defeated that one.
That's good.
And they go on to basically it's all COVID-19, 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 blah, blah, blah. But what ended up happening was 4:30 p.m. this past afternoon, the Attorney General submitted 2 unsolicited affidavits from Democrats.
Yes, two Democrats came running to the Attorney General. I have this.
They felt unsafe. Now, poll challenge. First of all, they have not only the mask requirement, they also will have for all the poll workers face masks if they want to also, or face shields if they want to also wear those, gloves, sanitizers, all that stuff. But anyway, they submitted affidavits from Democrat poll challengers saying we felt unsafe because of how close we had to be, and it's just their personal opinions. But it has no basis on the legal claim, but it politicizes the case.
Right, of
is what
course.
I think they wanted to do. So,
Yeah, they do.
So
They want the court to say this is a political question and you have to deal with it. I'm guessing. Too bad you have Governor Whitmer. That's where you're going to be stuck, and that's an easy way for the court to get out of it, is to say, well, normally under normal circumstances it'd be fine, but this is anything but normal in the age of COVID. They act like everybody on Earth is like one moment away from dying, and it drives me nuts. They're like in the age of COVID. It's like,
I mean, in the whole Amy Coney Barrett confirmation hearings, they made this argument that COVID, so we can't have these confirmation proceedings.
Yeah.
You're the U.S. Senate. Some of you represent 50 million people.
And you're a mile away from everybody else.
You have important business to do. I mean, yes, it might be a risk, but this is important. The courts in general are important. How is it fair to Lucas Gerhard, whose trial has been delayed almost a year and maybe longer at this point?
Yeah.
Because someone might get sick. Well, too bad for him, who's just lost a year of his life. The justice system is too important. The legislature is too important. They can't just say, COVID, sorry, I guess we can't work. We'll just cancel session for another 3 weeks. I thought the stuff that we were doing for the 10 million people that we represent was important.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point people have to say, this election might matter. So, yeah, there might be a risk, but you know what? The election matters, and the constitutional statutory role assigned to poll challengers is important. And
I have to go into court in person. I have to go into court in person on Monday. And I'm like, what the hell? I thought we were doing a Zoom thing. I don't want to go to court. Like, I just want to wear my suit coat and no pants. That's what I want.
Yeah.
And now I have to actually go in. It's going to be really irritating.
Yeah, I did a few interviews this year without wearing pants. It was great.
Oh God, it's the best. It's the best.
Yeah.
I never wear pants. Nova Zero says DEF CON 2016 actually had an 8-year-old teaching people how to compromise voting machines in the general issue of even their storage. Oh, I read this one earlier, but that's okay. There are no cyber experts who will tell you that voting online is safe. Manual is best. But all these people said Bitcoin was safe, so I figured blockchain distribution was fine. Robert H. says, hey, rackets, the wife is being way too handsy and is harassing me. I teased her that I'd get a lawyer for the harassment. You're all I can afford. Please tell Elisa to quit being a thought. P.S. The Emperor protects. Elisa, I demand that you cease and desist your rampant thoughterry on my client, Robert. You need to stop immediately, or there will be dire consequences. So there you go. Okay, thank you, Robert.
Do it, Elisa. Do it.
Well, man, I've got some super chats to run through.
Yeah.
And then I think we'll wrap up the show. Did you want to hang out for him? I don't
Sure.
know if okay. Silky Johnson. No, Malik Foxon says, by the way, I'm hoping it doesn't end up going the way I think it might, but I'm making fairly certain that I'm not going to be out anywhere but on my way to the house around announcement time if I'm not already home by the time the count is up. Oh, if I don't think the election is going to be decided on voting day. I don't think that's I think it's a very strong chance we go past voting day this year.
Well, let me address this too to make a pitch for everybody, because we talked about this in the video. The most important thing is to be poll challengers, is to be there and to see it. And I can't tell you how many campaigns I've worked on where we ask our volunteers to be poll challengers, and we say, stay there till the end, look at the receipt tape, get it so that we have it right away, and then come to the victory party. And inevitably, they all show up to the victory party at 7 o'clock. I asked you to stay till the end. It was important. No, I want to come to the party. No, please. This is important. Become a poll challenger. Do it. Work the polls. I know it sucks to have to do it. It's a long day. If you do the whole thing, it's 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And it sucks. But some people have been working at this for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. This is the last day. This is when shit can go wrong or shit can go right. And the most important thing, whether we win or lose this lawsuit, the most important thing is having people there to check on things and see things. Keeps people in line. Because when nobody shows up, then they know they can do whatever they want and get away with it. So
Only. Oh, go ahead.
Have your party the weekend after. Have your party the day after. You don't need to celebrate on election night. I know you want to. I want to. And by the way, part of their strategy is to drag this out. In Detroit, they said if you bring it in the poll book, you'll be in line till 4 o'clock in the morning, guaranteed. These are people who have been there since 5:45 a.m. the previous morning. They're going to have their nerves shot. And they're going to want to go home and not do anything. But that's what they're counting on, is their side cares more than we do. Be there. Be a witness. You have to do it. If you don't, who else will? Who else will? Nobody else will.
You know how entitled this generation is? You think this is clearly an OnlyFans and Instagram generation if you think you need to be working the polls for less than 12 hours. Come on. These ladies have been working those polls for days before these young thoughts showed up. Ridiculous. Yep.
Well, fine. Do it for 6 or 8 hours. But do it as long as you can stand to do it, please. Because I tell you, if you think the GOP is going to save you and they've got this all covered, bullshit. No, they don't. No, they do not.
I have no faith in the GOP.
Good.
Silky Johnson says, as Russian, no, he won't be bothering anyone for a while. Yes, I left him out there. I stomped him, pulled all his teeth out. I remember thinking to myself, Jesus, what a terrible thing to lay on someone with a head full of acid. I have no idea what those two voices had to do with those comments, but I'll take it. Silky Johnson says, it'll be fascinating to watch the media not call it if Trump is ahead. They'll say, oh, we don't have a definitive number, but all ballots, at least in my state, have everything on it. So they'll call winners for everything but the president. Gay op confirmed. Yeah, that could happen.
I think Trump's going to kill it. I think he will, honestly. I think he'll win the popular vote. But
Really?
Yeah.
That would be impressive. I mean, he's, again, aside from COVID, his presidency was a shockingly good success. Like, I don't know. I was thinking back. I was talking to Ty on the phone the other day. This is a little while back. And I was like, God, like the economy was kicking ass. Jobs were up. You had less foreign wars. You have peace deals going up all over the place in places where they shouldn't be happening. South Korea, the Middle East. They just had enough, that story kind of slid under the radar. Peace deal in Azerbaijan or whatever, where the shit was hitting the fan over there.
Kosovo.
Yeah, you got peace peace all over the place. You've got economic prosperity throughout the U.S. and little of the problems that we were talking about. The only complaint you could have is that Trump was kind of a dick. And it's like, well, I mean, sure, but so that's what I tell my relatives now when they're like,
I wouldn't even give him that, frankly. He's been a dick to people that attacked him first.
yeah, but like, okay, so some of my relatives are like, well, but he's just
Look,
he's
my
just
whole
not
family is
presidential.
left-wingers.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And they all voted for Biden. I believe we all know how it is.
Yeah.
If you're a Trump supporter and you don't have friends and family that are voting for Biden, you don't have any friends or family. I mean, that's just the way it is. But you have to think about the people that you don't see, the communities that you don't have connections to. And the Democrats have taken them all like they're in their pocket. I don't think they are.
Yeah. Well,
I don't
and
think
the
Hispanic community is. I don't think the black community is. And I don't think I think the people that often don't vote will be voting this time.
well, and the polling data on following some of the debates was pretty stark on some of the minority communities flipping hard for Trump. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, Trump's only winning X percent of the black or Latino vote, but it's like, yeah, but that's like double what's normal.
Yeah, I like this point about these polls too, because you've heard a lot about the crosstabs maybe and the sampling of Democrats or Republicans, but the thing that I don't think any pollster checks, if they do, they certainly don't say that they do, is if I'm doing a poll, I can look at on the background what I see about a voter in my file. And believe me, tons of data is available for sale on every voter. And you can tell oftentimes, not with certainty, but to a great degree, where someone really is. For example, the records are out there for every single person in Michigan, who they voted for, not who they voted for, but which party's presidential primary they voted in.
Right.
So you can figure if someone voted in the Democrat 2020 presidential primary, dang likely they're Democrats. And
Usually.
Same for Republicans. And they have tons of fields in these voter files. They have an aggregate GOP score, but they've got religious affiliation. They've got issue scores, which some of those are modeled and some of them are pretty mature from surveys and data that comes in from all kinds of different sources. So if you actually were to take the polling data you get from calling people on the phone and cross-checking all of those into the voter file, you'd get a much better picture. I don't think anybody does that. Also, by the way, here's another dirty secret about pollsters.
They like children. No, I'm just kidding.
Pollsters often rely on call centers. I worked on a campaign once where we commissioned a poll, and we surveyed every voter who we had a phone number for in the whole district on how they felt about the candidate, how they felt about abortion, how they felt about gun rights. We got the data back, and we looked at the data, and I noticed some of these people were actually our campaign volunteers, who we knew for a fact were pro-life and were marked as being hard pro-choice. And we called them all and said, is there any possibility anybody at your phone number actually is pro-abortion? They said, absolutely not. We were never called.
Right.
So we called the guy that did the poll. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. The subcontractor, the call center that I farmed out apparently was just totally bullshitting me.
Of course.
And we had to get our money back. It was a huge disaster, waste of our time. We lost the time, of course, doing the polling, because meanwhile, there's all these other campaigns going on. We couldn't poll people again later. But yeah, because we caught it, because we saw that some people we knew personally were completely fake, it turned out the entire poll was totally fake. You know, there's so many ways these things are just totally cooked.
This is way off topic, but how do you feel about sus being a bigoted word?
It just goes to show you how people will start controversy over complete nonsense.
Like I'm worried because I was driving some of my kids home today, and we were listening to this. There's this podcast or not podcast, a YouTube channel that does Dungeons and Dragons stories, and my oldest son is way into D&D right now, so I'm listening to it.
Wait, does he play Among Us?
Yeah, of course. And so we're driving, and the D&D story had like an obvious twist, and they were telling it. He goes, that's pretty sus. And I was like, bigot, get out of the car and walk home.
Oh, man. Don't spread that shit, man.
I'm just kidding.
You know, I mean, I saw like one story on the web about that, and, you know.
Yeah,
anything to start a controversy, anything to get people angry and nasty and vicious. That's what they're all about.
Oh yeah,
it really is.
I don't remember the name of the YouTube channel. It's I could look it up real quick. They're really good. They're just these little stories about here, I'll pull it up real quick just so people can check it out, because I think the channel's kind of good. It's All Things D&D is the channel, and they just have stories that people submit, and this dork reads them, and it's like stories from their gaming table. So it's good stuff. Okay, let's see. Next, we've got Automata says, please share K soup recipe. K soup recipe? Like my soup recipe? My soup recipe is simple. You get a mirepoix, you add some garlic. I take whole chicken breasts, boneless chicken breasts, and I season them with some Cajun seasoning. I throw that into the big soup pot with some oil in the bottom, just oil, really hot. I sear the sides, and then I pull them out. I don't cook them all the way through. I just sear them, pull them out. Then I throw in the mirepoix, scrape up all that chicken gravy. I throw in the garlic. Then I add some tomato paste for some acidity. I add chicken broth to that. Then you dice up the chicken nice and bite size, and you throw that in. You add some bay leaves. You cook it for, 40 minutes, 30, 40 minutes. Just get the vegetables soft and the chicken cooked through, and it's great. That's it. That's all you need to do. Esme Illis Anime says, Happy National Black Kitty Day. Oh, Happy National Black Kitty Day to you, too. Frederick Acker says, got into a little car accident. Everything is fine. Well, that's good to hear. First thing I did was to call my dad, who is a lawyer, and the lady called the cops. And hopefully you didn't say much of anything to the cops. Tet says, here's about Tree Fitty. Is alcoholic eggnog good? I don't know. I don't drink any eggnog. I'm also old. Is eggnog dairy? I don't even know. What's in that?
Eggnog is like liquid milk and eggs, I think, and sugar. I don't know. I'm not an eggnog drinker at all.
I had to cut dairy out of my diet entirely. I've had zero dairy for a week. You
poor soul.
I know. I just want some cookies and milk. But
I gotta lose weight, but I'll cut bread before I'll cut dairy.
It's not weight for me. My stomach was just constantly off, and I think I've been developing a lactose intolerance over the past couple years. And I was just like constant, just not like hard pain, just minor annoying pain for like 2 weeks. Cut out dairy. It took about a week, and now I feel actually really good. So
I'm not actually a milk drinker. I'm an egg and cheese eater, though.
Yeah. Well, I eat eggs. Eggs are fine, but cheese, I miss cheese a lot, and butter.
Yeah, man.
CJ says, what about setting up a camera to focus on the screen or work area so it can be zoomed in without the recording function on? Binoculars, my arse. No cameras. I mean, they're going to take that. You try and put a camera on their screen, they're going to freak out, I would imagine.
Yeah, in any which way. I mean, even with binoculars, they're setting up an adversarial environment. Is what they're doing, and they know they're doing it.
Yeah. Angry Baneling says, done. Got old real fast.
Yeah. Well, you know, what am I gonna do? I mean, I meant to make the audio better and really tweak things. It's like, no, I gotta get this out the door.
Yeah, you gotta move it. The other thing is you gotta deal with copyright issues. Your one note dones probably didn't trigger much of anything.
Yeah, haven't heard anything.
Rogue says, so provisional ballots are unsecured. Are the provisional ballots even counted? Right? Like they just go in a folder.
What they're supposed to do is provisional ballots and used to be challenged ballots would go into these envelopes.
Right.
And they are secure. What they do, it's the same as what they do with absentee ballots. You fold the ballot into a secrecy sleeve, and then that goes into the envelope.
Right.
And the secrecy sleeve has on it who the voter is and what the voter ID number is or whatever. And what they're supposed to do is then basically just double check and see, okay, is this voter actually supposed to be legitimate to vote? And if yes, then process it and add it to the total, or if not, don't. Well, what they're doing now is they're saying any ballot that's challenged goes into the tabulator and is presumptively counted, and only in a recount maybe will it ever get pulled back and looked at ever again. Whereas a provisional ballot, they say, we'll just destroy it in 6 days. And that's not what's supposed to happen. What's supposed to happen is there's supposed to be review. Okay, this ballot came from whom? And there's a problem with this. Why? The idea is that there would be a higher level of scrutiny. The ballot actually gets looked at by a real election official, not a poll worker who, at the end of the day, all these people only really work this one day of the year, 2 years, 4 years. They're not regulars. They're not experts, but the clerks often are.
Right.
So that's what's supposed to happen.
Sherry Lott, thank you for the donation. Timmy Carl says, now that you mentioned that, no one checked for my ID when I voted today. You know, it depends on what state you're in. Some states, they won't let you. Some polling places, it's different polling place to polling place. Like here in Minnesota, when my parents voted a couple elections ago, my dad tried to show his ID. They were in the Twin Cities, and they actively, I can't look at that. I can't look at it. And then at my polling place, you show your ID, and they're like, thanks. So it's, it's wherever you are. No one important says, for election day, please, please, please have Twitter up for those usual dummies, especially Ron and funny VAs screaming Biden will win. I want to see them tears. We'll see. We'll see. I got to figure out how to organize all of the different damn windows we're going to pull up. Dominic P. says mainstream media will act like voter fraud does not exist until Biden loses. Then they will shout that there was voter fraud. Snark Marks says to sing in lemon voice, tree very pretty, like lemon tree very pretty, and the lemon flower is sweet, but the fruit of the poor lemon is impossible to eat. I don't know the tune of whatever that is. Kagero, I don't know if that's a Ninja Scroll reference, but it should be. Says, I really think people have this image of a president who's respectable, but at the same time, they're okay with being thrown under the bus if it's Luther. He's just non-traditional. That's all it is. Oh, damn it.
Like Ann Coulter would always say, he's icky, is how people see him.
Well, Ann Coulter is icky too. What happened? The stream, it's coming back. It's back. Sorry, the stream cut off for just a second.
Yeah.
It's back. Too many people are spamming F to see the message that it's back. No,
yeah,
it's
call it Ann Coulter icky if you like, but I tell you, demonic about the mob. That book came out years before its time.
Yeah, no, I mean,
everything you're seeing happening now, she called it.
Oh my gosh, why is the stream buffering and hiccuping? Like your and I connection's fine. I hear you just fine. I see you moving.
Yeah. It'll be okay on the after the fact.